From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxton Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner. Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, 9 a.m. meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We will begin today's meeting with a flag salute led by Supervisor Mike Maggard. Following the pledge, please remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation, whichever you prefer.
Please rise. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I would like to call on Nick Colin, Director of Animal Services Department, to introduce our Pet of the Week.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Who do we have here today?
We have a frightened bucket of dog. This is Alana. We've named her Alana. She's about 3 months old. She's scared. She's trying to figure out the world. It's a scary environment for a dog in a shelter.
Right.
But she's got 5 brothers and sisters that are at the shelter. Just came in yesterday. We're seeking foster for her until she can be available for adoption, which is this Friday.
Okay, this Friday, perfect. Oh, she's a cutie. Well, hopefully we can find somebody to give her a new home for a while.
I'm sure we will.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick, for
Thank
coming
you.
down.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
The County of Kern has provided notice that as a result of the declared federal, state, and local emergencies due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in light of the governor's orders, this Board of Supervisors meeting is not physically open to the public. Testimony and general public comment are accepted via email or voice message to the clerk of the board prior to today's meeting, and live comments via teleconference will be heard during the meeting. We will begin by considering the consent agenda. All items listed with a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the public wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any members of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. A member of the public may also comment on any closed session item. At this time, I will read the consent agenda item numbers. And that is items 1 through 7 on page 2. Item 10 on page 3 has been withdrawn and will not be considered. Items 11 through 14 on page 3. Items 15 through 22 on page 4. 23 through 27 on page 5. 30 through 33 and 35 through 37 on page 6, 38 through 44 on page 7, 45 through 51 on page 8, 52 through 57 on page 9. Okay. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we do have the California State University president, Lynette Zelezny. She would like to address your board on item number 2 on the consent agenda.
Great.
So at this time, President Zelezny, if you would unmute your phone by pressing *6, you may address the board. Mrs. Lynette Zalesny, if you would unmute your phone by pressing *6. We're not able to hear you yet.
Good morning, Board Chairman,
Good morning.
Board Chairman Peters, Supervisors Scribner, Maggard, Couch, and Perez. Greetings to you and the hardworking Kern County leaders, department heads, employees, and my fellow residents of this amazing county we call home. Thank you for welcoming CSUB on the occasion of our 50th anniversary and for your resolution of congratulations on this milestone for our entire community. October 1st, 1970 will be remembered as one of the brightest days of promise and hope in the history of Kern County, for it was on that day that the pursuit of a college degree became a very real possibility for thousands of local families and their children. But that moment was years, decades in the making. The fight to build a 4-year public college here in the southern San Joaquin Valley required incredible perseverance and organized strategy and the inability to take no for an answer. But most of all, it required leadership. Your predecessors here on the Kern County Board of Supervisors provided that leadership, and they joined a coalition of other champions and advocates to press the case that our families deserve the same access to higher education as any other families in our state. And it was a long fight, and the outcome was not assured. So on behalf of the 12,000 CSUB students, our faculty, staff, and nearly 60,000 alumni, we would like to thank this board and all the boards that have come before you for support. CSUB is the expression of a dream that the future belongs to Kern County. As long as our friends, neighbors, and families yearn for knowledge, education, and enrichment, we will be here to provide it. It is my pleasure to share with you a video made to mark this extraordinary moment in the life of our university and Kern County's university. Thank you.
It's not too hard to imagine what California State University Bakersfield looked like in its early days. Through a donation from Kern County Land Company, a 375-acre parcel of land along Stockdale Highway became home to the university. Since the first day of classes on October 1st, 1970, CSUB has filled over half of the 375 acres, adding facilities to accommodate academic programs, student life, and the greater community.
We really value that community feel, and so something that has always stuck with me is the fact that we are a runner family, and that's something that I always say, because when you come here, no matter who you are, no matter what background or where you come from, here the faculty and even the students really help you feel as if you are a runner.
We have much to celebrate because we have come a long way in 50 years. We are nationally recognized for our commitment to student success and for providing access to higher education for our deserving students. Our students are brilliant and increasingly diverse, and our graduates continue to serve the region and the world by solving some of our most complex challenges.
One of the biggest things for me is helping the students realize that there is more to academics than just what they learn here. And helping them realize that everything they do is going to have an impact in their lives. What CSUB provides for them is an opportunity to expand beyond just the academics.
Students at Antelope Valley benefit greatly from the CSUB AV Center. Students are able to take undergrad and graduate level courses and not leave the community. Many of our students are grounded in this community, and really transferring away is just not an option for them. And so CSUB provides the opportunity to attend a CSU and also stay in the Antelope Valley.
CSUB's prestige and what it means to be a runner, I think you see that across so many different organizations here in the Valley. It's absolutely essential. I would say CSUB is the core of the Central Valley. So many students rely on them to get ahead in life. So I think that is what you get with Cal State Bakersfield. You get progress, and that's what CSUB means for this valley, is progress.
We thought we had really made it when we made it to the 25th, and reaching the 50th, a half a century, tells us we are middle-aged, because you compare us with many other universities that have been in existence for 100 years, we were always the new young kid on the block. And so to be 50 years old, to really sort of have grown up, I think is a cause for celebration.
We are a university that is on the rise, and we enter our next 50 years with great optimism.
Thank you, Dr. Zalesny, for sharing that. My wife is a CSUB alumni as well as an employee, so she keeps me aware of all the great stuff going on over there, and I know there's a lot of it and a lot to be excited about. So congratulations on your 50th anniversary. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, well, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second, and congratulations to CSUB.
Thank you. The motion is approved. All ayes.
All right, thank you. The board will now consider item number 8 under public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making your presentation.
Mr. Chairman, we do have 2 speakers waiting to address your board under public presentations. The first speaker is Alejandra Garcia. Ms. Garcia, if you would unmute your phone by pressing *6, you have 2 minutes to address the board.
Good morning. My name's Alejandra Garcia. It's spelled Alejanra, Garcia, Garcia. Again, good morning. I'm a member of the Central Valley United of Power, also known as CVUP. Central Valley United for Power is a coalition of organizations that build inclusionary and transformative people power across 8 counties. Member organizations include the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, Community Water Center, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, Californians for Justice, Faith in the Valley, Hmong Innovating Politics, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, Power California 99 Roots. As you are aware, because of the growth in population from 2010 to 2020, the boundaries of the Kern County Board of Supervisors will require significant change for the 2020 census. The purpose of this presentation is to ask on behalf of the members of the CVUP how the County of Kern is going to comply with the new mandates of AB 849, the Fair Maps Act, with regards to transparency and public engagement of the redistricting of the Board of Supervisors, which include 5 public hearings, up to 2 conducted prior to lines drawing, at least 2 more held for public input and changes after maps have been made public, 1 final hearing for adoption of a map that has been ad public for 7 days prior to adoption. In addition, we want to ask scheduling meetings regarding the Board of Supervisors redistricting from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. to ensure community participation. Moving forward, redistricting conversation be made a special timed item in the agenda to respect community members. Create a dedicated portal on the redistricting process. Place explanation of the redistricting process, links to materials, calendar of all public hearings, meetings.
You're about 15 seconds over your 2 minutes. Could we bring your comments to a close,
and
please?
Apply best practices.
Okay.
We just would like to see the redistricting process with open transparency in regards to community input, and put that on the homepage.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Riddhi Patel. Ms. Patel, if you would unmute your phone by pressing *6, you have 2 minutes to address the board. Ms. Patel, we're not able to hear you. Please unmute your phone by pressing *6.
Sorry about that. My name is Riddhi Patel, Riddhi, Patel, Patel. I would really like to appeal to your moral sense of capabilities, but you all can't give less of a fuck.
Ms. Patel, that type of language is not appropriate in a public meeting. If you'd like to refrain from profanity, you're welcome to continue.
I do not care. I will not curse. I will continue my public comment. But, Leticia Perez, your disgusting use of feminism when you're saying International Women's Day, which was literally started by socialists, while you chuckle at downtrodden communities as a Democrat, is disgusting. None of you have the moral sense of outrage when it comes to these communities who will die because of your vote today. David Couch, I look forward to staying outside of your house every day. And every single one of you, Mike Maggard, as you come back to the chair and then walk away again. But I look forward to standing outside of your guys' house every single day. I have all of your addresses, and I will be outside of your house every day, along with every other community member in Kern County. And because many are outraged by the decision you made yesterday. Philip Peters, you disgust me. Zach Scrivener, you disgust me. Leticia Perez, you especially disgust me. And David Couch is my supervisor. You 100% disgust me. And I hope you understand that Zach Scrivener, Mike Maggard, you're up for re-election next year. But Philip Peters, Leticia Perez, David Couch, I don't have time to wait for the next 4 years. And I hope you expect a recall because you guys disgust me. I look forward to spending my time to get you out of office because you all are disgusting human beings, and I hope you never get any sleep at night.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to now consider item number 9, board member announcements or reports. And I'd like to begin by asking Bryn Kerrigan, Director of Public Health Services, to provide a COVID-19 pandemic update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This morning, I'd like to give you guys an update on the blueprint metrics. This morning, the state will announce our testing positivity rate in Kern County is 4.9%. That actually meets the orange metrics or tier 3 metrics within the state's blueprint. Our health equity positivity rate is 7.6% today, which meets the red metrics within the state's blueprint. Our adjusted case rate, however, is 11.8, which is a significant decrease from 2 weeks ago when I reported it at 18.5, but that's the one metric that's holding us back from moving into the red tier at this point. I wanted to ask Ms. Kraus if she can put up the document that I gave for the document reader. Last week, the state changed the blueprint for a safer economy to include a vaccine equity component. Upon administering 2 million doses of COVID vaccine to the lowest healthy places index quartile statewide, the case rate for the tier threshold essentially becomes less restrictive. As you can see from this chart above, currently the blueprint requires an adjusted case rate in the county to equal 7 per 100,000 people to move to the red tier. When California hits the initial goal of 2 million doses administered within the lowest quartile, the case rate threshold changes to 10 per 100,000 people to move into the red tier. When California hits the subsequent goal of 4 million doses administered within the lowest quartile, the case rate threshold changes to be less restrictive to move from the red to the orange tier. Specifically, currently, and under the 2 million doses administered scenarios, a county's case rate must be under 4 per 100,000 people to move to the orange tier. However, with 4 million doses administered in the lowest quartile, a county's case rate can be as high as 5.9 per 100,000 people to move to the orange tier. The testing positivity and the health equity quartile metrics do not change based on the number of doses administered. It's only that case rate, that adjusted case rate, that changes. The 2 million and 4 million goals are statewide goals. However, the state is requiring that counties administer at least 40% of our vaccine allotment to those who meet the current eligibility criteria within the lowest quartile, while still meeting that 70-30 split, 70% to those 65 and older, 30% to those that are in those essential work classifications. While we await guidance from the state as to how their state-run vaccine appointment system, MyTurn, will assist in devoting 40% of our appointments to the individuals who reside in the lowest quartile, we have been targeting our outreach efforts to these areas to encourage vaccination. Specifically, as Mr. Alsop's office will review with your board shortly, we are launching 2 mobile vaccination units through Kern Medical, who will deploy within Kern County at locations determined through our collaboration with the United Farm Workers Association, California Farm Workers Foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, Cesar Chavez Foundation, and the Farm Bureau's office. Additionally, the county's Fairgrounds Mass Vaccination Clinic is now operating on Sundays, as well as the OptumServe site in Arvin and in Wasco. Furthermore, we've been using the reverse 911 system called ReadyKern to provide vaccination messaging to the homes within the lowest quartile. We have also repurposed our canvassing team to provide door-to-door outreach in these neighborhoods with information related to vaccination. We continue to collaborate with the Latino Task Force with vaccine messaging and had developed a collaboration with Arlena Waller to develop an African-American targeted vaccine campaign, including billboards, television PSAs, and a social media campaign. In addition to the vaccine equity component of the blueprint, there was also a couple more changes made over the last week. While live events were not previously permitted with an audience within the purple or red tiers of the state's blueprint for a safer economy, as of April 1st, they will be permitted in both tiers. Effective April 1st, for counties in the purple tier, live events are permitted for 100 or fewer people from within the region or 120 miles with advanced reservation. For counties in the red tier, live events are permitted at 20% capacity for people within the state, meaning no out-of-state participators are permitted, with advanced reservations and only in-seat concessions. During the last board meeting, I updated your board on the new youth and adult recreational sports guidance issued by the state. As a result of a lawsuit settlement on March 4th, CDPH again updated their sports guidance, taking effect March 5th. The guidance now includes a section that outlines what steps a team in any sport, including indoor sports, must take in order to resume competition and contact practices outside of the colored tier system as referenced in the guidance. Teams, regardless of their affiliation, wishing to compete while the county is in a tier other than the one that allows their sport, must adhere to the college and professional sports requirements put in place by the state. Included within these sports guidances is a requirement to conduct periodic testing, adoption of a return to play safety plan, site-specific safety plans for facilities that will be used to play the sport, screening of all individuals involved, as well as a standard for isolating and quarantining any players with or who have been exposed to COVID-19. A brief update on our vaccine progress. As of yesterday, the county has been allocated 188,295 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, including 29,270 doses expect to arrive by the end of the day today. As of yesterday, 158,023 doses had been administered to Kern County residents. This is not the total number of vaccines administered in Kern County. This is solely the number of doses given to our residents. 47,712 people have completed their vaccination series, which is about 5.2% of our population. We continue to see increases in our vaccine allotment. Kern County will receive 30,270 doses, including 8,500 doses of the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine this week. This is almost 10,000 more doses than the county received last week, and more than 15,000 more doses than we received 2 weeks ago. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that concludes my update.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Supervisor Perez? Okay. Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you please say again, Ms. Kerrigan, how many doses do we have this week to give out?
This week, Kern County's allotment is 30,270 doses.
And that includes the 8,000 Johnson & Johnson?
That's correct.
Very good, thank you. And how many doses did you say had been given already?
So far, 158,023 doses have been administered to Kern County residents.
And if every person received a dose, that's 2 times 900,000, right? So 1,000,008.
Correct.
So about how long do you think it will take us to inoculate everyone who desires to have that? Is there a projection of that yet?
So there's no projection on the total population. We were projecting that it's going to be about 10 weeks to get all of our 65 and older vaccinated, and about 40 total weeks to get those that are 65 and older, and all of those that fall within that phase 1B, tier 1, those education, childcare workers, emergency services workers, and food and ag workers within the county. However, if our vaccine allotment continues to increase at the pace that it has been, then that will of course be expedited.
Okay. So the tier 1 might take till around June 1st, something like that?
Correct.
Okay, very good. And could you just speak for a moment as to how we're doing with the health equity sector and how effectively you think we're permeating that?
Sure,
sector?
absolutely. This is not new to us. We have this health equity metric that we had to implement for the initial blueprint tier under the testing component. So we were driving those individuals that resided within those communities to testing. We've just adapted our methods to discuss those vaccination efforts. We've been very strategic about where we are placing our vaccination sites, if we have any control of that, ensuring that those vaccination sites are falling within those areas within the lowest quartile, or directly adjacent and serving those areas within the lowest quartile, so that we're ensuring that all members of our community have access to vaccination. And then we're also deploying multiple different mobile units. The one that has been deployed by Adventist Health Tehachapi in East Kern. There's multiple areas in East Kern that are within that lowest quartile. And then the item that's later on in your agenda with Kern Medical deploying, that will also be deployed within the lowest quartile areas.
Very good, thank you. I want to commend you and your staff, but I know you personally were involved in trying to make sure that many, many school districts had access to the vaccine for their staff that wanted to have it before they went back. And that's a vital role in opening up, not only making it available to our children so they can be in school again, but making sure that we are able to sustain our economy. So I want to thank you personally for your engagement with that. Okay, I'll look forward to progress as we're going. I'm delighted with how it's gone so far, and we have a long way to go, but we are certainly making progress. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Scrivener?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Supervisor Maggard, for those questions. Ms. Kerrigan, I just want to make sure that I have this correct. So did I hear you say that our doses per week have gone up 10,000? Is that roughly?
Supervisor Scrivener, through the chair, that's correct.
Okay,
yes.
So it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 now?
Correct.
Okay, very good. That is quite an increase, roughly threefold, I think, from what we were doing before. And so I know that we have the three state sites now, in addition to the mobile, and then of course our large site at the fairgrounds. And so can you continue to keep us posted as a board as far as the timeline? I think that that's something that's of paramount importance to everybody, is how long will it take us to get through our 65 plus, and then we have frontline workers and teachers among that group that are also eligible. So if you can keep us posted on the timeline, to me that's very important to know how long it's going to take us to get to where we are. Supervisor Maggard estimates sometime in June. But do we still have the ability, in your opinion, to distribute 45,000? I think you told us that number somewhere a week, that we could ramp up to that level, 45,000 a week.
Absolutely, and that was prior to the 3 state OptumServe sites
Okay.
coming in, so
Okay.
absolutely.
So what do you think our bandwidth then is now? What's our capacity?
Easily 55,000 plus doses
Okay.
per week.
I think that's the number we need to be striving for then. That needs to be the goal.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. Supervisor Perez?
I don't mean to suggest we aren't doing this or it needs to be done, but I'm being asked about it, so I'm going to ask you without any pressure one way or the other. Do we have a need capacity for mobile units in at-risk communities?
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, absolutely. That is part of the reason why we're deploying these mobiles through Kern Medical. We absolutely need to reach these areas where they're at. So while we're going to start by addressing the agriculture community with these mobiles, then we're going to deploy them into other areas of our community as well.
Got it. Your plan sounds excellent. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
And for articulating in a user-friendly way. Appreciate your devotion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kerrigan. Okay, we'll next begin by considering item number 28 under the County Administrative Office, the proposed retroactive agreement with Kern Medical for the delivery and administration of COVID-19 vaccinations to agricultural workers through the county using 2 mobile vaccination clinics. Mr. Alsop?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mr. Zerfus from our office will handle this out.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Peters and members of the board. The purpose of this item is to recommend approval of an agreement with Kern County Hospital Authority, under which Kern Medical would deliver and administer COVID-19 vaccinations primarily to agricultural workers using 2 mobile vaccination clinics throughout Kern County. The California Department of Public Health has included agricultural workers under Phase 1B of the current COVID-19 vaccination guidelines, which is the current phase being vaccinated in Kern County. Due to the nature of agricultural workers, or agricultural work rather, the county faces some unique challenges in reaching the agricultural worker population with the existing vaccination efforts. For example, these individuals typically are not available to visit a vaccination site during normal business hours. There are communication, transportation barriers that exist, and there's a lack of access and potentially understanding of the whole registration system, to name a few. Efforts to deliver the COVID-19 vaccination to agricultural workers must take these barriers into consideration and do so in partnership with groups trusted in these communities. The county and Kern Medical are working in partnership with the United Farm Workers, California Farm Worker Foundation, Cesar Chavez Foundation, Dolores Huerta Foundation, and Kern County Farm Bureau to develop a strategy to locate these 2 mobile units in areas where they will have the most benefit. I want to thank these groups, these organizations, for their commitment to work with us on this effort. Based on the initial discussions with this working group, these units are operating or scheduled to operate during non-standard business hours, working early in the mornings or even in the evenings, delivering the vaccination on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. They will be moved between strategic areas such as orchards and fields in harvest, farm worker housing units, and initially 1 at the 40-acre site in Delano. The county will continue to work with these strategic partners on an ongoing basis to adjust these schedules and locations to best reach the targeted population. The first mobile unit will be launched this Friday, the 12th. It will be at Johnson Farms along Edison Highway and Comanche Drive, and planning to administer a couple hundred doses to the employees working at that location. It's not open to the public. That's targeting those agricultural workers at that farm. Planning for Saturday and Sunday is being undertaken, and currently the plan is for the 13th and 14th, this Saturday and Sunday, to be located at the 40-acre site in Delano, with roughly 1,000 doses over those 2 days. These 3 sites are being coordinated by the UFW and Cesar Chavez Foundation, and we are working with the Kern County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and Farm Bureau to schedule Monday and Tuesdays clinics, likely in Buttonwillow. The second mobile unit, that's the first mobile unit. The second mobile unit is about 2 weeks out from delivery. Once it's delivered, it will promptly be put into service. The cost for the proposed agreement is not to exceed $2.9 million for the period of March 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021, and would be funded with epidemiology and laboratory capacity funding provided through the Federal 2020 Budget Act. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. I know Ms. Kerrigan, your public health director, is here as well, and I believe that Russell Judd, CEO of Kern Medical, is also available to answer questions to your board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zervis. Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment on this?
No, Mr. Chairman, we have not.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I'm punched in there.
Oh, Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Zervis, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this presentation and for the hard work you have done to work with groups like United Farm Workers, our Farm Bureau. Obviously, they have so much mutual interest that is beneficial to Kern County. And we are the beneficiaries of that partnership and that recognition of our need and mutual interest. So thank you. That's really reflected in this possibility today as it is presented to the county and my colleagues. Ryan, really, thank you. There's so much excitement from the community that this focus is taking place, that folks feel they have been listened to, and that the county is really a partner in this process. I hear that, and I feel it everywhere I go, and really, from the bottom of my heart, Ryan, thank you for your team's efforts. And Mr. Zervis, of course, you're a consummate professional and always doing what's in the county's best interest. And I really appreciate that leadership. So, I'm strongly in favor of this item. I'm going to make the motion for it, and of course, would love to hear from my colleagues. But I'm very grateful and hopeful about this effort. So thank you.
Second.
Thank you, David.
Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Thank you. The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Next, we will consider item number 29 under the County Administrative Office, and that is the fiscal year 2021 through 2022 Budget Development Report and Proposed General Fund Contribution Guideline. Mr. Alsop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This morning we're proposing our recommended budget guideline for all county departments to follow when developing their budget request to your board for next fiscal year. That is fiscal year 2021-22. Our guideline recommends budgets be kept at current year levels and does not seek any further reductions in general fund net cost allocations to departments at this time. According to the Kern County Assessor, who is here today and is available to answer any questions from your board, despite a slight 1.8% growth in the residential commercial assessment roll, total assessed value for fiscal year 2021-22 for budget development purposes is down just a little slightly over 3%, primarily driven by the assessor's estimate of a 30 to 40% decline in the oil and gas assessment roll. All other rolls are static. This decline in assessed valuation translates into a $5.1 million loss in property tax revenue alone for fiscal year 2021-22. My office is estimating a total loss of $6.6 million across all general fund discretionary revenue sources, again primarily related to the devaluation of oil and gas properties, along with impacts related to COVID-19. Modest growth in sales and use tax revenue mitigate the overall loss in general fund discretionary revenue from being more severe. This anticipated overall decline in the total assessed valuation, coupled with retirement cost increases for public safety personnel and the substantial costs for implementing a 5-year plan agreed to as part of the settlement with the Department of Justice and the Sheriff's Department, require us to maintain already substantially reduced general fund net county cost allocations. The current fiscal year 2020-21 budget was expected to be the turning point, as you all know, for the county's financial stability and overall health, as it represented the end of a 4-year deficit mitigation strategy enacted to manage property tax declines that began in fiscal year 2016-17. However, when the fiscal year 2020-21 budget was adopted in August by your board of last year, we faced the unprecedented and unpredictable impacts of the pandemic. Because of these uncertain times, in terms of our discretionary revenue sources as well as our costs, the board prudently and wisely reduced general fund net county cost allocations for most non-public safety departments by 7.5%. These net adjustments to department allocations generated $8 million in savings that not only help balance the current fiscal year's budget, but is also helping to mitigate the need for additional reductions in funding for departments next year at this point in time. As the county approaches fiscal year 2021-22, our fiscal situation requires us to maintain those reductions and status quo spending with limited exception. Your board is rebuilding the fire fund. The proposed guideline seeks no imposed reductions in the fire fund. This fiscal year, your board has permanently shifted an additional $4 million in property tax away from the general fund to the fire fund, and has provided $10 million for the purchase of new vehicles and equipment, the largest such investment by a board of supervisors for equipment to the fire department in over a decade. This is in recognition of the deficit that is facing the fire department. Your board also approved a new cost methodology and timeline for implementing new contracts with cities that contract with the Department for Fire Protection Services to more accurately charge for the actual cost of the services provided by the department. While the fire fund will face a reduction of approximately $1.9 million in property tax revenue, it is not anticipated that an additional contribution from the general fund will be needed in fiscal year 2021-22 to maintain existing service levels. These efforts, however, will not be sufficient to cover ongoing pension increases for safety personnel in the long term, and it is imperative that the county continues to work diligently and strategically in our efforts to achieve full cost recovery for services provided to help compensate for increases in cost, while simultaneously exploring potential sources of new revenue for our fire department. With that, I'm going to ask Ms. Martinez, our Chief Financial Officer, to provide her report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Good morning.
As Mr. Alsop indicated, we anticipate next fiscal year budget to be challenging. As you can see in the summary, it pretty much highlights the detail that Mr. Alsop gave you. We are anticipating a decrease in our assessed value of about a little bit over 3%. This translates in approximately $6.6 million decline in general fund discretionary revenue. That is the funding source for most of our discretionary programs and some mandated programs for our county departments. So when we put together the guideline, we look at 4 areas: our current year budget and finances, our assessed value, state and federal actions, and program costs and expenditures. As Mr. Alsop indicated, last year we did a 7.5% reduction in anticipation of the impacts of COVID-19. When I presented the mid-year report to your board, I indicated that we had approximately $12 million carry forward that we're going to have to mitigate next fiscal year. This is due to a one-time property tax payment that was made in this fiscal year instead of prior year. That funding is going to be instrumental to maintain the reduced service levels that we already have without requiring additional service level impacts to our residents and to our departments. Looking at the assessed value, As Mr. Lifkins informed you yesterday, we anticipate a reduction in oil and gas for next fiscal year, despite a modest growth in commercial and residential. The overall impact translates to $5 million loss in property tax revenue. Next slide. And for our discretionary revenues, you can see on this, we were on 17-18 at $357 million. We took a small increase due to one-time resources in 18-19, but again, on 21-22, we are down to $364 million. This is the amount that represents the resources that we have available to fund departments. Next. In the mid-year report, I also indicated that we would have available Prop 172 resources above our budget this current fiscal year. This is very important as the safety departments are seeing an increase in their safety retirement costs. In addition, as Mr. Alsop indicated, we are going to have to fund the 5-year plan due to the settlement with the Department of Justice. The Prop 172 funding is only allowed to be used for public safety purposes, and that additional resources that we anticipate in fiscal year this year will be used to cover next year costs. Moving on. As we develop the budget, we also look at the state and federal actions, the increase in changing state mandates for social services programs, and the available realignment is also reviewed to determine the funding to our Department of Human Services. Moving on. We also review the increase in program costs. In the proposed net general fund guideline, we are going to require to use $6.5 million from reserve to offset the cumulative pension cost increases for share and probation in the general fund. As you look at this graph, our pension costs continue to increase. I want to bring your attention to the projected for fiscal year 22-23. The green represents our pension bonds. This coming year, we're going to see this first decline on our pension debt service payment. And then on fiscal year 22-23, we anticipate to see a decline, additional decline, when we paid off the 1995 POB. The unknown at this point is what the CSERA contribution will be. For next year, we were anticipating a reduction in pension of $14 million for our departments. Unfortunately, due to the increases from CSERA, we're only going to see a $5 million decline across all county departments.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Martinez, thank you so much. I just want to get some clarification on the pension cost. So is that the first POB to come off? It is, right? And then there's one other that comes off?
Supervisor Scrivener to the chair, there are two pension bonds, the 1995 and the 2003. The 1995 last payment will be on fiscal year 22-23.
Okay.
The 2003 doesn't mature until 12 years
okay.
after. What we're seeing is a decline on the debt service, a small decline on this coming year, and then the final payment will be made on 22-23.
Okay, now, if memory serves, when we were looking at these projections as far as the POB coming off, we basically, I think, we had put some money aside in some savings accounts to help us weather sort of these increases. And so aren't we thinking that when that pension obligation bond comes off, the reserve fund is depleted, and so it's going to kind of be a flat fiscal impact? Is that still the case, or we think we might see some actual savings?
That was the goal. Unfortunately, CSERA is taking our savings. So the savings that we're seeing on the pension bond are being transferred to our rates on our retirement. So if you see our 21-22, we anticipate $263 million. If CSERA would have met all their assumptions, that payment would have been flat, and we would have been able to gain $14 million reduction from the pension bond. But because we're having to fund CSERA at a higher level, we're using the savings from the pension bond to offset CSERA increase.
So essentially, when the POB is paid off, we still aren't going to see a net reduction in costs. Is that, am I tracking that right?
As of now, based on the projection we have from CSERA, no. We're going to still see an increase coming up for 22-23. If they were to meet all their assumptions and there were no assumption changes, the goal, yes, you will see that reduction. But at this point, they gave us a 5-year projection, and they are estimating an increase for fiscal year 22-23.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Next slide. So this is just an illustration. I think we get asked all the time, where is the growth in property tax going? Well, we haven't had significant growth in the last few years, but what we're seeing that our salaries are growing at a much lower rate than our retirement and health benefits, especially our retirement. That graph just shows the incremental increase that we have seen from retirement over the years. Once the POB is paid off, we'll see hopefully a small decrease, but we're still not where we need to be. So as we prepare the guideline, although there are major factors that for next year that are still unknown, like the final assessed value, the final carry forward, and the final state and federal impacts, the proposed contribution guideline will provide this office and departments a preliminary planning framework to develop a balanced budget for next year. We will have 4 additional board meetings to discuss the development of the budget and on the coming months, and we will bring any changes to your board. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions your board may have.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve staff's recommendation. Sorry, to receive and
Mr.
file.
Chairman, I just wanted to note that we do not have any public comment on this item.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Okay, now the votes can be casted. Thank you. And the motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Next, we'll consider item number 34 under Human Resources Division. First, I'd like to call on Mr. Alsop with the County Administrative Office.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate it. This item, we're going to have Mr. Brown, our Chief Human Resources Officer, handle the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there he is. Sorry, Devin. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The item before you is our request to create a new classification titled Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at a salary range of 69.8 and a proposed addition of 1 position in that classification to the Human Resources Division Budget Unit 1310 effective today's date. On October 6, 2020, your board referred to the County Administrative Office a referral to prepare a response to a letter you all received from a group called Kern Community First Initiative. The Kern Community First Initiative brought forward a call to action seeking, among other matters, to improve the representation of African American community in government employment, specifically in law enforcement positions and first responder positions. Over many years, Kern County has implemented an equal employment opportunity plan. However, developing a diverse workforce is just a start. It is equally important that each member of our workforce feels strongly that they are a valued part of our Kern County team. And lastly, we must ensure that there is fairness and equity in our employment processes, practices, and procedures, and that we continue to hire based on merit. The proposed position of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is the next step in moving our organization forward to meet these noble objectives. Kern County does not currently have an individual within its workforce singularly focused on this work. The addition of the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion will be tasked to manage the Kern County's diversity, equity, and inclusion progress, and will move us in the direction that many private sector and public sector employers are heading. The ideal candidate for this role will be someone who can connect with community groups such as the Kern Community First initiative and build toward achievement of our mutually desired objectives. Aside from developing these connections within our community, the Director of DE&I will work to reconstitute our Human Relations Commission, creating the structures to hear important voices on vital DE&I issues in our community. Additionally, the Director of DE&I will be working towards developing and implementing policies and practices that lead to a respectful and inclusive workplace with diverse voices. We anticipate that the successful candidate will develop strong partnerships across our county leadership to improve our hiring, promotional, and succession planning practices, guided toward building a diverse bench of future Kern County leaders. The proposed Director of DE&I reports directly to myself and is included in the management bargaining unit. The total fiscal impact of this position is $194,413 annually, which includes retirement and health benefits. The entry-level base salary for this position is $98,000 per year and up to a top range of $120,000 per year, and is equivalent to the Deputy Chief HR Officer position in my office. Your board also received a letter of support from the Kern County or Kern Community First Initiative regarding this matter, and has been distributed to your board today. It is recommended that your board approve the new classification title, Director of DE&I, at a salary range of $69.8, and the addition of one Director of DE&I to Budget Unit 1310 effective today's date, and refer to the Human Resources Division to amend the department position and salary schedule. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions or comments from the board? And do we have any public speakers, Ms. Kraus?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we do have one person on the line who would like to address your board, Ms. Barry Witten. Ms. Witten, if you would unmute your phone by pressing *6, you may address the board.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I just noticed this morning in the paper that Kern County was slated to hire someone for the new senior HR position that will focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this topic. I see that the focus in the letter encouraging the approval of the position is to provide support for people in Kern County who are Black Americans. I understand the recent emotionally charged and graphic images bringing issues surrounding Black American males and others in this demographic are extremely serious, and agree that our community should look for incidences locally and try to address root problems. Our entire community should look to address ways to support and encourage individuals dealing with discrimination and address the discrimination that Black Americans face along with people in other demographic groups. I know you agree that we should desire that each person in our community, that they would be flourishing as a productive and positive citizen. We want all citizens to be contributing and making a difference for good in their circle of influence. However, I am deeply concerned when the wording has been changed from equality to equity. Equality speaks to equal opportunity. Equity speaks to equal outcomes. This is not what our system of government has ever been based on. Outcomes that do not require an equal playing field is exactly what we are supposed to be against. This position, while it does not mention it, can be used to require equal outcomes such as selection for employment of one individual of a specific race or other unspecified classification when another candidate has more experience, qualifications, and background for the position. This is a way to institute the very structural racism and discrimination that is being criticized. This will actually create a system that is in 2021 considered morally good because it is discriminating against those who have been seen to have had privilege or advantages. Another concern is the lack of specific description of who's included in those diverse voices. People of religious background, people with a certain sexual preference, people with a certain skin color, people from a certain country of origin. We have policies restricting discrimination based on characteristics such as age, race, sex, disability, veteran status, etc. What will be added to this list and how will that impact our community? Equal outcomes is an idea that is based on a philosophy and has been proven as flawed in many ways that are documented by history. To me, this is an open door to building a structure for discrimination in our county. I urge you to vote no until more clarification and thought is given to this position. Good intentions do not equal good outcomes. It's time to think critically, as this position says it requires. I appreciate so much you guys listening to my thoughts on this matter. I really believe in our county of, I think over 100,000 people, that my thoughts represent more than the 500 people who signed a petition from the Kern community first to create this position. Thank you again.
Thank you. If there are any comments or questions from the board or a motion on this item? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't see you there. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stand in strong support for this, this effort. It can be spun or perceived or talked about by those who know little about it, little to nothing about it in many different ways. But the bottom line is that this position is going to help us cure things like recruiting people from our community to become members of our fire department. There are, I'm just going to use this as an example. So, Chief, sorry, you're going to have to hear a little bit of the dysfunction of this. But when we want to recruit someone to be a firefighter, for example, there is a statewide effort amongst many people to be prepared. There's a whole industry of how people become prepared to become firefighters. And they go through this process and apply all around the state, having kind of been prepared and enabled to be as highly perceived as possible when the selections are made as to who will be the next firefighters. I'm not disparaging that. I'm not condemning that. But that leaves other people that are, for example, outstanding young students in our high school. They are outstanding athletes in our high school. They are leaders amongst their peers in our high schools. They have no idea how to go through the process to become a member of the Kern County Fire Department. This position will help us connect those dots so those very talented, very capable, outstanding young people can be shown this is the path of how you can aspire to and realize that goal. I think that is a worthwhile and noble thing for us to be involved in. So that's just one little example. I won't belabor this because I think it will be strongly supported by all of us. But there is, you can talk about this any way you want if you want to try to cast it in a negative light, but it is an effort that I think is appropriate, and it will help us meet our goals to strengthen the county. Mr. Alsop, do you have anything else you'd like to add or talk about any other applications, whether it helps us deal with, the Attorney General's issues in the Sheriff's Department, things like that?
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, members of the board, we're a $3 billion, 8,000 plus employee organization, and dealing and managing with workforce issues across the full spectrum of departments and through whether it's onboarding or training or promoting, disciplinary action. And to the points that you made, Supervisor Maggard, really thinking about ways in which we can strengthen where we can our efforts to put not only more local people to work in county employment, whether it's with fire or sheriff or any other department, the CAO's office, not just local people, but people in our community that may be from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, making sure that they have an understanding of opportunities with the county, how to navigate those processes of employment opportunities with the county, I think is certainly an important thing to give some attention to. But this is really ensuring that we are applying all of the the laws, the rules in terms of employment and hiring and all the things that go into managing our workforce, making sure that we are not only applying all of the best practices that we can to managing our workforce, but ensuring that we're in full compliance with all employment laws and everything else. I mean, we are. We mentioned the sheriff's department. I mean, part of the and I know the sheriff is here, but part of the settlement agreement does deal with recruiting and onboarding deputies and ensuring that we're going after as a diverse group of potential sheriff's deputies and trainees as we possibly can. This position would certainly help there. Same with our fire. And really making sure that our human resources department is really putting a strong shoulder into recruitment across the board, no matter what department is recruiting, making sure that our community and the residents of our community, whether they are people coming out of high school or young adults in our community, they understand when job openings happen with the county, and they understand how to compete for those jobs with the county, again, whether it's with the sheriff or fire or anyone else. So this is just really bringing somebody on to be thinking about these issues full time, to be advising our chief human resources officer on them, to assist department heads in thinking about and thinking through them, and offering, again, ways that we can improve our workforce management practices overall across our enterprise. And that's really the effort here.
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. So I would heartily motion that we approve the position and refer to HR to amend the departmental positions and salary schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Perez?
Ryan, I want to thank you for formalizing this matter and being creative in your outreach to the community. And Mike, I want to thank you too. You have been outspoken more than anyone up here, including myself. You have really led the charge on this, and given your stature and reputation, I think it carries the kind of weight that has brought this to fruition today. So I appreciate that. And Ryan, I continually hear from the community the kind of outreach that you're engaged in, the kind of respect that folks feel in the community, from my Punjabi brothers and sisters to the African American leaders who feel very engaged in this process, and of course the task force, as we've discussed. I really appreciate that. I think you're being creative, you're being open, and I know that you're approaching these matters in good faith, not as a means to hurt one group over another. That only builds resentment, as you know, and it doesn't help any of us. But certainly opportunities, as Mike discussed, to incorporate more members of our community in upward mobility makes a lot of sense for us. In particular, growing our own talent and prioritizing local people for the work here in Kern County. I mean, that's how we build a stronger economy and tie to one another more than we have been before. So really, I appreciate you, and I thank you for this opportunity, because I think it's a good conversation to have, and we can do it in a healthy way. So thank you. I'm strongly in support of this effort.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, we have a motion from Supervisor Maggard. Is there a second?
Sorry. Second.
Okay, thank you. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Having no more items to consider in open session, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session to consider items 58 and 59 under County Administrative Office. 58, 59, and 60, and then item 61 under County Counsel's Office.
Motion.
Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.